Hello, everybody, and welcome to the full album review of Tool's Fear Inoculum. The long-awaited 13-year gap has passed, and Tool is here with a new project. So I think it's about time to enter the Rock and Beards podcast, the show where we break down albums track by track, give thoughts and opinions on every single song. My name is Holden Stephan Roy, and today I will be your guide through at least whatever I thought of while listening to Tool's Fear Inoculum album. Alright, so we're going to do the intro bit, and you can skip that by checking the description of the video to see when I talk about every particular song. But I like to start everything off letting y'all know that I know I'm not an expert by any means. I'm just a person who one day started reviewing albums, and I've been learning and just trying to appreciate as much as I possibly can on every single project, go through the journey and just learn from it all and enjoy it and just kind of share the experience with y'all publicly. And one thing that has truly made a huge impact on my life over the last couple of years has been the comment section on these different reviews, because the truth of the matter is the only person coming to these reviews are the fans. So most often person coming to watch this review knows way more than I do. So I like to give a lot of love to the comment section, and I went back and checked out another Tool album we reviewed, and on that there was a comment from Bubba Cod 986, and he said, "I don't think there's many bands that can recreate the place that you were taken to when you listen to Tool. It's like a whole nother world." And I thought that comment was really apt and definitely expressed how I feel, at least in this moment, having just come off listening to Tool for a while. And I just thought I'd share that with you and encourage you to leave your own comments. And if you make that effort to leave a comment, I will make that effort to answer you. And I just think it's cool like that. We can have a little conversation. Before we jump into the episodes, special thanks in advance to the patrons: Ismail Dempsey, Chris Prado, Jonathan Barnes, DJ Black, Hurricane, Linda Williams, and Coney Sparks. They dope, so shout them out while you're still watching at the beginning. On that note, I don't want to waste any time because I think this is going to be a long one. Why don't we start talking about the new Tool album, Fear Inoculum, or Inoculum. Wow, can't say it wrong like that. It's not nice. Anyway, I like to start off the show describing and contextualizing my relationship with the band or the artist that we're covering on a given week, because I think that matters a lot, especially as you're going through albums. Albums are like these all-encompassing experiences where it's almost like a journey. Like, I've gotten really into like listening to just albums and collections of songs a lot more than singles. So when Fear Inoculum, the single, dropped, I just didn't listen to it. I just ignored it, and I just waited. I waited until this came out, and that was the first time I heard it. So I think it's important to describe my relationship with the artist, because if you've been a fan of Tool since like the 90s, and well, you've been waiting since 10,000 days, I believe it is, for this album to come out, your anticipation, just waiting over a decade for this, is going to have you in a very, very different place than, say, I'm in with this, where I knew who Tool was mostly because of the Guitar Hero pack, I think it was, and there was the 3 Tool songs, and then you would play through them, and it was all technicolored and weird and cool. But I didn't really get into them that all, because I just, for a long time, didn't appreciate much beyond the vocals and music. So while Maynard is a great singer, I didn't appreciate it the way I can appreciate music today. So I'll say that all the beauty and essence of what this band brought to the table went over my head, because I was definitely in that group of people that was intimidated by things like a 7-minute song rather than trying to understand why it's amazing. And then after a while, I guess you'd hear a song here and there. I really got into the song Sober. I think that one's particularly dope in general. And then I think it was the Polyphonic or one of these channels. Anyway, my boss at work is a huge Tool fan, and I know at some point he was talking about some video that on Tool, and at some point or another I ended up checking out some video, and it broke down the math of Lateralis. And I got personally interested in that commitment to basically writing a song that pays adherence and respect to math principles. And the geek in me exploded in joy at the dedication that any band could make to such an interesting song. Like, the truth is so few people will probably appreciate the brilliance of it, but they did it anyway because it was like a feat to be done. It's like when people build robots to do weird crap like your laundry for the sake of it, not even for anything practical, like just some crap. Laundry's actually a good idea. So let's say go to the fridge and get a soda, which is also kind of practical, but still unnecessary. Like, it feels like making a song on a math principle is unnecessary. But now that it exists and is truly amazing, it's this like thing that is just there to be appreciated by those who understand why it's dope, I guess. I feel like Tool is not very casual listening unless you really understand why it's good. And I say that because I used to not understand why it's good. But as I, before getting into this album for myself, right? So we ended up, to getting a bit ahead of myself, we reviewed Lateralis, and that was an amazing experience for me. But even then, it was like not even a year ago, I think, that I reviewed Lateralis. But I feel like my understanding of music hadn't evolved enough to truly appreciate what they were doing. At the time, I was way more focused on lyrics, and I was reviewing with a dude who understood music better than me. I'm not gonna lie, when you review with somebody that knows something better than you guys just work it out. Okay, I did lyrics, he did band stuff, boom, we moved on. Now, as you can see, hi, I'm alone over here, so I gotta talk about everything. Of which I will do my best. Understand, I am not the best with the band stuff, as in describing the specific nuances of things like time signatures and whatever. I'm not that good with it. I really like the Lateralis album, though, and just the experience that I went through hearing it and just the complexity of the music. And I think one of the most impressive parts of that project was how, in spite of the song length and everything, which, I mean, for me, felt like long at the time, I no longer, looking at the song lengths on this album, Fear, Inoculum, damn, those are some long songs. But basically, I kind of realized nothing's boring here. It was just this beautiful mesh of sound put together in just an immaculately composed way. So I like Lateralis a lot. You could check out our review if you want. But then I realized, there's a Tool album coming. So for the last year or so, I've been kind of waiting for it to come, and I'm certain many people doubted the day would ever arrive. But August 30th came. The Tool album came. Fun fact, it leaked early. So, it came out in the physical version of the album leaked like a week early. And I wonder if they allowed that to happen because of all the YouTube content and stuff that kind of got made about the leak situation, in a sense, hyping everyone up and almost letting everyone know the album was real a week before it came out, which you might think is going to hurt stuff, but like, people are buying a Tool album because they were gonna buy it either way. But this way, everybody knows the new Tool album's coming, all because of a leak, man. It got so much free press at a point that isn't necessarily new music cycle of like the news cycle. Like Monday, Tuesday isn't exactly hot new music day. That's after the weekend's done, like it's a different phase. So I thought that was a clever potential marketing strategy, or at least they let it happen because it was good marketing. And then I looked up the track list and I was prepping it, and I realized there's two versions. So the physical got leaked, but there were 3 tracks that are on the digital version of the album. This is Fear Inoculum, that basically came out separately. So if you're on Spotify, it's actually got an extra 8 minutes or so of music than if you're looking at the physical edition of the album. But if you get the physical edition, you get the fancy pantsy box, which I don't have at the moment. I do plan on buying this album at some point. So I'm really grateful that enough time passed between doing doing the Lateralis album review and getting to this point, because something that I have been doing over a lot of 2019 is reviewing a bunch of early 90s hip-hop. And something about early 90s hip-hop is it's very sample driven. So over the course of looking at how the hip-hop DJs and producers would take different samples and rearrange them and change the focus of sounds to basically create these enthralling experiences. And I'm talking like the top tier DJs, you know, or the top tier producers. Like there's so much amazing talent that went into the production work that we heard. And then I started really focusing a lot more on the grooves and the vibes and just the different energies coming out of the music in a way that I hadn't really focused on. And I'm not going to lie, that was a lot of good prep work for this Tool album, because a lot of the things that I think the attention to detail that a ridiculously talented hip-hop producer using samples in the early 90s was doing is up there with like the attention to detail that Tool gives. And I'm not talking about quality of music or talent. I'm not even trying to compare the things, except for the level of detail these guys put to making sure the sound is pristinely the vibe they want to create for every second of the experience, which I think is really, really cool. Anyway, so I'm excited to get into talking about this project. For me, it's like, I'm hoping this gets a lot of clicks. That's a big part of it. But mostly, I didn't really know how I was going to approach this review. So mostly I do lyrics. That's my thing. But if you go through a Tool album, it's going to be a lot of musical breaks and changes and nuances. So I basically loaded up a Microsoft Word document and I did something I don't normally do. I really just kind of went through and tried to break down every song into each identifiable part that I could find. So in many cases it's a lot of parts, and I felt like it would be fun to go through those together as I just kind of describe my experience with each song. And I will do my best here, but just know that I spent no less than an hour at the point of reviewing with each track of this album, really trying to listen and appreciate the nuances of what makes this band incredible. So if I'm not pristine with this, I apologize. But understand, I have spent like a good 8 to 10 hours with this album now since it's come out in the last couple of days, because I did listen to it a few times before, and it's a 90-minute album. It's just time consuming. Put off everything else. I basically only listened to Tool as far as music's concerned for 3 days in this album, and I'm just really excited to I guess get into it. All right, I'm going to do something right now. I'm going to Google the definition of inoculum and read it to you, because frankly, I don't want to have to like pretend I understand it. Basically, inoculum is a substance used for inoculation. Good thing I Googled it and didn't guess. So a fear inoculation, it means that we're looking for, I guess, the substance that'll be used in the inoculation against fear, or maybe fear is the substance being used in the inoculation. I don't know. I think it could be kind of either in the way it's written, because it's vague, right? So it's either a fear inoculum, so it is about inoculating against fear, or it's like the fear inoculum, like it induces it. And I think it's cool because it leaves it so vague to interpretation, in a sense where, as we get into the content of this album, I think it was done deliberately because of how people induce fear and create different narratives in the world that we live in, which is kind of stuff that is delved on inside of this album. The cover to me is just completely It's got a kind of textured swirly thing, like it's going into a black hole. I don't know. It says Tool, Fear, Inoculum, and whatever. I feel like it looks like it's a Tool album cover. Like it looks like it makes sense to me because I've seen all their album covers. But frankly, outside of identifying this particular project, I'm not really feeling it. However, you should go watch those unboxing videos of the whole like package if you didn't purchase a copy of the physical CD, because Tool goes in on making it worth your money to get the thing. And they're such an incredible band that when you can financially and you're a big fan of them, you should probably cop the physical, because it's probably a good collector's item, and I'm going to do that at some point. I just haven't really gone anywhere in 3 days. Anyway, I think it's time to get into the project, this Fear Inoculum project, and it starts off in a bold move with the title track, Fear Inoculum. Alright, so here's how I'm going to do this. It's a lot of parts for each song. I'm gonna do it a little bit reaction style, but you're not gonna hear the part I'm reacting to because copyright law and stuff, and I do respect it. 5 seconds is fair use, the whole song is not. So you should totally bump the project with me if you want, and I'm gonna give you like timestamps that are approximate for each part to give you an idea of kind of where I'm at with it. So if it's off by a few seconds or whatever, or you don't agree with how I break up the parts, as the album went on, I totally got lazier with it because the songs are pretty long, and it's just really to give us talking points because I do believe there's a bit of an experience that's going on this project. It starts off, this Fear Inoculum song, with these weird, like, shrilly sounds, almost like a siren. I want to say, like, it kind of sounds to me like a siren as it goes on. And there's a lot of different sounds that layer in, and then there's like these, like, so you hear the shrill sounds for the first like 10 seconds or so, and then there's like this cascading, like, doo, 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 doo. But what you realize, I don't know, is that the rhythm, well, I realized that the rhythms are kind of syncopated. I might be wrong, it might not be syncopation, but they're like kind of two separate tracks doing their own things, but like together, which I believe is what syncopation is. Again, I might be wrong about that. However, just the way it flows together is just interesting, right? Then these little doo-doo-doos comes, and after that you also start hearing these bombs sounds going off in like the background of it. Now it's at like a slower tempo, like it's really just kind of building in, and then other sounds start scattering through, like or whatever, stuff like that will just flow in. And basically this is, and I'm not even lying, the first minute and 37 seconds of the song. And it's what I'm calling a creepy intros. About 55 seconds into this, you're going to hear this little drum start kicking in, and it kind of starts sounding eerie and foreign, meaning that the scales being used don't sound like your conventional North American C major pop music, at least to me. Again, all of the music theory stuff I say, correct me, I'm guessing. I mean, I have a kind of foundation, but a little bit guessing. I ended up having my imagination run with it, right? Because what else are you supposed to do when listening to ethereal music like this with headphones on, kind of in your vibe? Well, I pictured this kind of radiation wastelandy, like, you know, when you see like a tumbleweed and it's all kind of smoky and dusty and the sirens are going on. I'm kind of Mad Maxy, but like dark, not so colorful as the movie, but like the vibe of that kind of world. And it's just like this music kind of presenting this intention almost at the beginning of this song that something messed up and bad, like anxiety is just building up, and it's just building up, and it's just building up. And I thought that was like a super fascinating way for the song to kick in, and like just the album to start, and it just creates this like ambiance and a little vibe. And then we move on to the second part of the song, which goes from about a minute 38 to about 2 minutes. My notes are like, it feels like now the song actually kicks in. So something, I guess, when I say like it picks in, it feels like the drums pick up, everybody kind of kicks in, and the ambient sounds that you were hearing previously kind of like stick around, but it's almost like slowly somebody's on like a mixing dial going like that, moving like different sounds to the forefront and different ones to the back. And that is definitely a tool I noticed that got used all over this album, and I don't know if it's something they always do, where it takes a stretch of like a minute of like the same loop, like the same riffs or something, but just by like altering what sound is in the forefront of the mix just creates it completely anew and alive and freshness to it. Like, man, like the band picks up and like we've gone 2 minutes into this song and you're like, wow, that's almost the entire length of Old Town Road, and we haven't even gotten to a single vocal, and everything's got like this, I don't know, I can't do any of the rhythms proper, but it just picks you up, and you're like, I feel like it's intoxicating. Like it really picks up a vibe, and you're just ready to hear what he's got to say right now. Comes in and I mean, we got the first little verse part, which kind of the music is now flowing. It's got a bunch of layers, and he kind of sings over it. And he goes, immunity, long overdue. Contagion, I exhale you. Naive, I opened up to you. Venom and mania, now contagion, I exhale you. So you guys don't have to agree with my interpretation of his lyrics, and just like I don't always agree with the stuff I see on Genius and whatnot. So immunity, long overdue. If you think about this fear inoculum, it's almost like we got to go, what do we need immunity from? Given the title of the song and the overall anxious, destructive feelings and the tone of the music, it speaks to me that we are talking about the overall social anxious tense of how we all are. Everybody's charged up, at work everybody's all safe, on the internet everybody's left, right, ready to go, boom, boom, boom. It's almost like there is this contagion that has taken over our culture and society that pushes us to, I guess, fear. Fear is really what it is. Everyone's so afraid. I'm not that afraid anymore. I used to be, so I understand the fear, but I'm kind of letting go of it. So when I heard contagion, I exhale you. I was like, I get what he's saying here, because it's like you're pushing the different negative forces that were kind of making your mind toxic, we'll say, out, as though you're literally cleansing your spirit. Naive, I opened up to you. Venom and mania. So think about the mania part, right? That's kind of like the media's and the way everything's going on now. The consistent sensationalist push where everything is a thing. Everybody's a person. Cancel culture. Every little movement. And I'm not even trying to diminish anything. In most cases, a lot of this stuff is super legitimate. However, for every good thing out there, there's bad actors that are going to be out there as well who are kind of pushing nefarious agendas that kind of look like it. Either way, there's a lot of people out there that make a lot of money on the conflict of social justice. Like the website medium.com, the one that kind of pushed back 2013 through 16, 17, it had so many opinion pieces from so many radical left-wing thinker types pushing the boundaries, accusing people of whatever, essentially generating a lot of web traffic to make a couple of dudes who couldn't care less a lot of money. That's literally like these guys used search engine optimization to take real issues and basically pollute the conversation with a bunch of sensationalist drivel, all so they could bank 7 figures. Now, this isn't like me, okay, the way I'm describing it might be like whatever, but what I'm describing actually took place, and this had bigger consequences, and it's kind of like, in my opinion, linked to like the current state of things on like the internet and whatnot. Anyway, we get back to that end of this little verse when he goes, now contagion, I exhale you. And it's just, I don't know, I'm saying it so weird. Exhale? I think that's how you're supposed to say it. And it just kind of like flows out and, it moves in. And that's just kind of like how the verse just kind of ends. And you're left with this, wow. And then then we're going to move into the next part. So this whole verse is about 45 seconds, and then we move into a little bridge musically, and the next little singy deceiver interlude part is going to happen. Alright, I forgot to point out about how Maynard's singing it. It's very calm and slow, and like every word is enunciated, and his voice is, to me, really cool. I can't even try to replicate it, but like his timing, it'll be like immunity, long over, like it's just like he's really spacing it out and making it take time, so it's like each and every word like sinks in that first part. It's almost like, if you look at, we're just on that first verse again, it's almost like this is him calming himself down in the midst of the anxiety. Like, it reminds me of the Christian idea that if the devil is tempting you, you're supposed to just stop and literally go, Satan, in the name of Lord Jesus, I rebuke you, and in theory the devil goes away. It kind of makes me picture Maynard in the middle of the chaos, just taking some time, immunity, long overdue contagion. It just kind of, this is almost like a prayer he says to keep his cool in tenser moments. to follow it up, the devil-like figure in this song, the deceiver, he comes in, and it's got like this cool, like, rappy tone almost to counter it. Like, the deceiver says, he says, you belong to me. You don't want to breathe the light to others. Fear the light, fear the breath, fear the others for eternity. I'm like, oh, it's pretty cool. So the deceiver comes in with his little quote. You want to be caught up, I guess it's kind of like indulge this anxiety, you know, fear everything, fear everyone else. You don't want to be like those people. You don't want to be like anyone. You're in this camp. And then it almost like changes, and the deceiver stops talking and he responds, but I hear them now. Inhale the clarity, hear the venom in what you say inoculated. Bless this immunity, bless this immunity, bless this immunity. And I like that 3 times thing, because in Hebrew, if you say some crap 3 times, it like drops it over as like super rock solid. Like, it's the most ultimate way of expressing something, is to use it in 3 times in a row. What we have now happening in the song is he's kind of rebuking the deceiver. He's saying, I recognize the toxicity in your words, and I have inoculated myself against your talk. Bless this immunity. He's grateful for it. And I thought that was really cool. And then it just kind of, that's it. That's already this part. So far, everything we've talking about has taken about 3 minutes and 33 seconds of this track as we move into what I'm calling the 5th part, which is going to have a little musical break, and then it's going, and sorry if this is kind of cut screeny, I'm literally like jumping back to listen to the song a little bit and then coming back to talk, so I do what I can to represent this track in its integrity. So it's a little musical break thing, and then some chorusy part comes in. So what's really cool about this is it's almost like the music kind of changes in tone. So it was kind of tense. And then as he's going, exhale, expel, recast my tale, weave my allegorical elegy, the music kind of takes on a looser, airier tone. So it's almost like the internal battle has been fought in that moment. And I picture this, it being, all of this song is like a microcosm of a moment when you have a thing in front of you, some temptation to react in a particular way. And he kind of, I'm inoculated against giving into this fear, and pushes it out, and then the moment passes and you get that calming feeling post-anxiety when everything's okay again. But he's simultaneously going, yo, check it, it's that simple, just recognize the fear for what it is and then proceed to expel that shit. And I thought that was pretty cool, and just the way the music kind of complements the energy and the tone of what's being conveyed in the song. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but like all the time signatures I believe are changing. Like, it just is so dynamic, it's so alive in the way, the composition, that everything just feels perfect. Like, we are pretty far into this song and you don't even care. Like, most times when a song's long, I get a little bit bored. I'm not even gonna lie. This time, I didn't even need to multitask. I was just sitting there vibing to the music over and over again, just playing this song. I didn't even want to move on from the first song because it was so well put together. Anyway, we still have a bunch to talk about on this. This was just really like a cool experience for me. Then it flows into another little musical breaky thing with a fun little drum part. So you kind of hear some intensity, then it almost like everything drops away and you get some funky little drum things kicking in with this cool little fresh alive rhythm. And then as it flows into the singy part, halfway through the song, right, it does something that I think really is impressive, because I guess the way I see a Tool song now is a series of riffs strung together in a way that works. Like, I tried to picture for the last 3 days, how do you write a song like this? I guess you jam till you have a bunch of riffs and then you put them together in a way that makes sense. And then I guess to keep consistency, you have to reuse certain things, otherwise the song will really just maybe feel too drastic. And a good example of them reusing certain elements to kind of make it fresh is about, I don't know, 4 minutes, 40 something seconds in, during this cool drum thingy, you start hearing that doo 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 as he starts moving into the next part of the track, where he begins to go ahead and sing again for the next little verse. So he sings on and he goes, enumerate all that I'm to do, calculating steps away from you, my own mitosis, growing through division from mania. That's a cool line. So basically, he's kind of looking at all the things he's going to do to essentially rid himself of the toxins and become better. And I guess mitosis. So mitosis is the process of cells splitting into two to kind of grow. It's how the cells in your body regenerate. So it's literally like the guy's one and he breaks into two, and now he's two, and then it breaks into two. So when you watch like those little videos of like a little baby going from one cell into two to four to eight, and that's mitosis. So when he goes growing through division from mania, in a sense, it's like he's dividing himself into different parts and shedding off the cancerous side of what he is, because mitosis is a division process, but he's division from mania. So he's growing as a person by cutting himself away from the mania of everything. The poetry of using division and mitosis is pretty fresh. And I was like, woof. But as he's saying division from mania, it's like he gets really into it. It kind of builds up in intensity and explodes into the next part of the song. So we have like the chorus comes back again, and it's over like, it's just like funky, right? Like every time he sings the chorus, which again is an element that they bring back in the song, I don't know, it's weird. I work for a company that makes PDF documents, and PDFs are basically made up of a bunch of document elements, and in a sense a song is made up of a bunch of instrument and vocal elements and sound effects put together. So then I just kind of honestly picture the pieces of this song honestly like elements of a PDF put together. Maybe it's just me and it's weird or whatever, but so you bring this chorus back in over a slightly different rest of it, so it's like taking a familiar part but like I like how they just, it's almost like just the way he sings the chorus is all you know that keeps it as the chorus. Maybe there are some similarities between the riffs and the chorus. I just didn't really catch them because it just kind of feels different. Like just slightly enough different that it's an engagingly new experience for the chorus. Then it like drops into something where it feels like the bass picks in a little bit and it gets kind of funky and cool before it breaks into the next music part, which is pretty interesting. Sorry, I was wrong. I checked the song. It goes into the bridge before it builds into that music-y bit that I was thinking of. So, forfeit all control, you poison, you spectacle, exercise the spectacle, exercise the malady, exercise the disparate, poison for eternity, purge me and evacuate the venom and the fear that binds me. And that's just honestly a bunch of convoluted to kind of point out the different ways that this spectacle, so you poison your spectacle. This is obviously talking about the tension and the error regards to the way media controls the narrative of life. So it's a spectacle, it's a malady, and it's disparate. And it is poison for eternity because it has lasting generational effects kind of thing. So he wants to purge himself of all this, run away, and then reinforcing that it's a venom and it creates fear. And that binds us. And it's not just him. I think every one of us is kind of dealing with our own versions of what this song puts forth. So I'm really impressed by Maynard's ability to capture the experience of, I guess, what I would say this is what it's like to be in North America right now. Whether or not we all want to talk about it, and this isn't meant to be some social justice rant or anything, it's just, it really captures what I see to be the tension in the air, but not in a way that's bad, because he's saying, this is the cure. Rid yourself of these toxins. Get out of the shit show. You don't have to be in it. You can just do it differently and rid the toxins from your world a little bit by bit. Then the music kind of feels like the tension's been building up for a little bit, and it just freaking like goes into exploding mode as we go into a bunch of music-y parts. I don't know how to fully describe it. Like, as the song plays out, you kind of hear him going, your veil now lift away, I see you running, deceiver chased away, a long time coming, and that's kind of interlaced throughout this. Honestly, like, it takes the earlier tone of the anxiety of the beginning of this song and it almost flips into this more triumphant battle version of the track where I feel like it's more uplifting. I feel like it's more capable. I feel like you can just have like a whole, like it just almost feels like a battle takes place and then you almost like win it, which is pretty cool to me, especially with the double bass. Because like, I was thinking about the double bass as it kicked in, and a lot of times double bass is boring because it's just often let's go as fast as I can. But the rhythm that the dude played on the double bass, in my opinion, made it sound stupidly alive. After that, it kind of just breaks into like this guitar solo-y thing. which is really like fun, like kind of a lead as it plays in, and it just kind of feels victorious. It feels like you're dominating. It feels like as this battle is taking place in this more spiritual sense, you're winning. Like that's just how I kind of left. Like this whole track takes you on this little journey from the beginning of the song where you're anxious and literal bombs are dropping and the whole tense of the world is going on and the news cycles and everything's scary, and you move all the way to the end where you rid yourself of the toxins of the society that we're in and beat the deceiver and the anxiousness that is driving us all, and you win through this slaying of the guitars and everything. And I was like, this is an incredible jam. I mean, I don't even know how long I've spent talking about this song at this point. I wasn't really paying attention to the clock, but I feel like every second of this song counts for something. Like you really go through this adventure where it just stays alive. Like even if it's just music for a couple minutes, it's just... You get something new like every 15, 20 seconds. Something's changing. Something's staying alive. Something's just... Like, this is an incredible song. I mean, I think it is one of the most incredible starts to an album I've heard, because, like, you're dropping a 10-minute plus song. It's got to be an incredible experience. And, I mean, this was an incredible experience to me. I don't even know how to describe how much I like this, and I gave it a 5 because it's flawless. There's nothing wrong with this song. This song sets a standard for how I will hear other music. Many songs on this project made me feel that way, and I don't know if all of Tool's older music was this amazing. I'm assuming it's pretty amazing, but I feel like I understand for the first time in my life why people obsess about Tool the way that they do, to a point where when I have time, maybe this coincides with holiday periods in my life, but I'm gonna do this again for all of the Tool albums and really just try to really understand all the nuances in each and every song that we haven't yet covered, because I'm not redoing Lateralis. On that note, there's still a lot to talk about, like a lot, so let's go on to Pneuma. Having looked at how long I've been recording for, this is absolutely going to be a 2-part episode, because it'll be an insanely long episode if I make it one part. On that note, this track is even longer than the first one, and I can see how maybe a lot of people might freak out about track lengths or something. But you got to look at album length, right? Because if you're listening to an album, in theory, you should be willing to give an hour and a bit to it. So an hour 26 is a steep album length still. But when you get through the first song, like I did with Pure Inoculum, and you realize just how incredible it is, and you got to keep in mind, the 5th or 6th listen I did to each song, I was still picking up nuances I hadn't caught. So I'm not even going to pretend to say I'm done with this album, or even close to hearing everything that there was to hear in this. If I were to really do this track justice, I could spend over an hour on every song, I bet, looking into all the subtle nuances and changes that made them incredible, but I do think that would be a little boring. Even this, maybe it's too much, but I already did it, so we're going through it in this tone. So Pneuma instantly changes, and I think it's cool because I think there's a bit of like a tone or a story to this album, and there is a bit of a battle. So Fear Inoculum, it's like our protagonist breaks free of the fear, and then post that, you get this kind of calming again at the start of Pneuma, and it's just like a little guitar thing kind of plucking on through, and some kind of... It's a terrible sound, but like the drums are kind of scattered and whatnot. And it's another good minute and 20 of slowly building up layer and ambiance. And it's kind of, it has a different tone. Like here, the anxiety is not there. It's more, to me, a tense mystery. Like we're looking now and you're about to get, I don't know, like maybe some pensiveness is happening, and that makes sense, because if you've just expelled the philosophy that guided your life previously, I guess you're instantly going to need something to come in and replace the way that you see the world. And I do believe that's where the Pneuma track is actually going with things. So around a minute and 20 though, which is what is going to be the moment where I call the band kicks in and like everybody shows up and it really picks up the song. So like it starts off with the guitar, and then you can hear the bass a bit, and then the drums kick in, and it slowly flows in, and you get this little build up until you get to the first verse, where I feel like the music just kind of, I mean, I started focusing on the lyrics. Anytime he starts singing, instantly I'm kind of jumping on the lyrics, just because, I mean, that's my main focus. But the music under it kind of made through. I kind of felt like the way the guitar and the drums line up, it's offbeat in a way that is super cool to me, because one of my favorite things in hip hop is when a rapper can kill a proper offbeat flow. And so I'm really into how they can kill it the same way that dope MCs can spit proper flow. I feel like the flow of Tool is just that pristine, and listening to the way the rhythms just lined up in that introduction were pretty dope, and it's just the beginning of the song. So he goes, we are spirit bound to this flesh. We go round, 1 foot nailed down, but bound to reach out beyond this flesh, become Pneuma. So Pneuma is apparently an ancient Greek word for breath, and in a religious context is spirit. So this kind of makes me picture that Maynard's on board with this kind of reincarnation, karmic souls, the essence of Gaia, kind of like the plot line of Final Fantasy VII, the video game where all the souls are part of the planet and all that stuff. That's just what I'm picturing here. So our spirit's bound to the flesh, and we're kind of on this world, and we're bound to go beyond the flesh and become back into the spirit. So our energy is going to inevitably leave our body and go into the world. And I like the way he goes, become Pneuma. I don't know, there's something about the way that he did it. I found it to be hooky. I found it to be really catchy. And yeah, so we get to the end of verse 1, and all of this is taking us through about 2 minutes and 45 seconds of the song. There's a lot of like kind of like feels going on. So instead of having that like maybe more intensity that we got, I feel like there's more of an awakening. Maybe that's the word I should have used earlier. I feel like an awakening is going on right now in this track. Anyway, the next part of the song flows in through the chorus. The way he says this chorus really struck out to me. The we are, will and wonder, and it's just the way he almost like he plays with the grammar almost, and just to make sure that the rhythm is done in a weird, I don't know, just will and just as a, I don't know, it felt weird, but it also really just works. So we are will and wonder, bound to recall, remember, and we are born of one breath, one word, we are all one spark, sun becoming. So I thought about this track a little bit at this point, and then after that it explodes a bit musically. But like, if you think about the Fear Inoculum track, where we're looking at all the fear and divisiveness going on, a good thing to remember is that for all of our differences, humanity is certainly really similar. Like, I went to a call center in Pakistan, and it is absolutely the same as a call center in North America. Like, call centers apparently are the same everywhere in the world. How are call centers the same? How are the same people? You'll find the same people in every call center everywhere. How? It doesn't even make sense. And yet, it's just real talk, man. People are very similar. Anyway, I like the way the chorus kind of comes in, and then the music just like picks up and flows into the next part, and we get a little bit of a musical break for a good 40 seconds or so. So yeah, I was a little bit longer of a music break. It keeps in, and I feel like it's kind of keeps that same tone that we've been carrying, that tense, like the intensity that comes from the hard-hitting drums with the pauses. But it starts adding some drum fills and stuff, and again, like little things to kind of make it feel a bit more alive, until we get into the second verse around 4 minutes into the track, where he goes, child, wake up, child, release the right, wake up now, child, wake up, release the light, wake up now, child. And I don't know, maybe he's just kind of speaking to all of us out there, like a little bit of a call to arms, like to embrace the inner energy of who we are and accept that, kind of release the light in a sense. Maybe that's also kind of paraphrasing to expel the poison in the previous track, or maybe it's release the light of who you are and kind of let yourself shine. I don't know, it's a spiritual kind of thing. I almost picture like let your spirit go and become one with the greaterness of the world and whatnot. So it's an interesting, like, out there song in my opinion from a lyrical perspective, but like thematically I thought it was such an appropriate follow-up to the first track. Yeah, and then it gets back into a little bit more of this little interlude thing with the whisper, spirit, Sorry, I said that really gross, like, but it says spirit a bunch coming through. So then we get to like the third verse, and it like picks up the energy, and it's almost like Maynard singing with a bit more anger and power to his voice, like everything got a little bit more real as he's going bounce at his flesh, this guy's this mass, this dream. And it makes sense if you think about it. Like, in the one sense, your spirit wants to be free and ethereal and out there and in the oneness, and instead we're all being tortured, almost stuck in these masquerade of humanity where we all have to be people and wear these bodies and do all this stuff. And it must be a frustrating thing if, in a sense, all you want is to evolve to a point. And I watch a lot of sci-fi, and you see it as a common trope in sci-fi where almost the evolution of humanity is to become an energy driven being that can kind of know everything. So yeah, I thought that was cool that, in a sense, we're caught in this dream, like everything about our lives is just this rat in a cage scenario, and it's not what it's supposed to be. And I appreciate that sentiment. After, it's like, as I said, like, it's an awakening. It's like, after you expel the poison, what comes next? So yeah, then it goes into like another music you break that kind of sounded like the other ones that we've heard between the verse stuff, but like almost like the post-chorus is this music break, but each time you hear it, it's just more intense with more drum fills, and then it completely flips into almost like a part 2 of the track. But in my notes, this is part 10, and it's from about 6 minutes 8 seconds to 6:55. So this is where it gets freaking like crazy. And honestly, for, let's say, the next 2 minutes of the song, from about 6 minutes 8 to about 7 minutes 46 seconds, it's this like crazy cool syncopation of different sounds and rhythms, and like everything's doing its own thing. The drums are crazy and interesting, and like all these different like downs and stuff like are flowing in and out, and it just feels like progressiveness with just the right level of deviations, changing the mixing in and out, making everything kind of flow in a point where, honestly, I just got lost in this. In fact, I said to myself, I understand why people like prog rock. I get it. Like, I get it now, because this was just so cool. Like, and we still got like 4 minutes of this track left after this part is done. And you're just sitting there going, what the fuck, right? Because there's almost no lyrics left, right? There's a little bit of an outro, but it's just kind of like, oh man. And then when you think, you're like, okay, what are they going to do next, right? And it's building up slowly, right? Because that's what they do, is these slow, gradual build-ups. Like, I showed it to my dude Chris, who I podcast with, and I'm trying to like get him to listen to some new stuff. And he's like, you know what I really like is the lack of hard transitions in this track, or in the general on this album. Everything is slow. Like, what one band would just go, okay, we're going to change from this to this, and it'd be like, and then it would just like whatever, and that would be it. Nah, Tool's gonna take 2 freaking minutes to get to that point that somebody would do in like a quick transition. And the groove. So the groove, as I understand it, is that like when everything just comes together and you can get lost in the music of it all and just flow through it all. The groove is just insane. And then at about 7 minutes 47 seconds, you hear this like guitar thing picking up, and like it kind of like takes the lead, like it just kind of overpowers everything else that you're hearing. Then, you know, it flows like that till about, I don't know. Sorry, no. The guitar comes in a little bit later, about 8 minutes and 18 seconds. I'm having a bit of trouble because I've never done this format before. I'll get more comfy with it. But yeah, just big guitar lead comes in. Then closer to the end of 8 minutes, as you're listening to that, it's like, nope, now it's time for the drums to like take over and be like the big part of this. And I'm like, wait, now the drum. It's almost like everybody's getting their terms to like build up. And then somewhere around 9 minutes and 20 seconds of the song, So the drum intensity like spikes up for a while, then it kind of drops off, the groove flips back in, it gets real heavy, it intensifies. You can kind of hear some vocal whispers and stuff kind of picking up in the beat. And meanwhile, something like, I don't know, like 4 minutes has gone by, and you've heard everything from this calming new phase of the song through crazy guitars and drums and everything just flowing in and out. Every 30 seconds something else is happening, and I'm like, this is incredible. And then of course we're not even done. Maynard reminds us he's still on the track, so for about 35 seconds we get the little outro bit. Yeah, there goes Pneuma. Reach out and beyond, wake up, remember we are one, born of one breath, one word, we are all one spark, eyes full of wonder. And as much as I think that the track has a calling for the more karmic voodoo side of, not voodoo, but let's say reincarnation-y feel to it, I think it's kind of talking about our consciousnesses and how we can collectively use our intellectualism and our ability to learn and grow to unite and through our understanding of each other as humans and about the things that bring us together, because we are all kind of born of the same thing. Like, end of the day, whoever you are watching this, your dad banged your mom and that made you, except for probably a really few exceptions, in which case I'm sorry if I offended you folk that doesn't apply to. In general, that's not the point. The point is we're all humans and whatnot. That's all right. Then there's another big musical break where it feels like the other ones post-chorus with just a slightly more complicated drummings and explosiveness until we get down to the outro where everything just kind of gets a little more funky and slowly just kind of like calms down, and it like ends the track and it brings you back to where it's supposed to be. And then you're just left at the end of this track like, wow. I mean, that's kind of my feeling again on this one. I'll be honest, from my pleasure and enjoyment listening to it, while I feel it's equally as well composed and it's great, I like it a little bit less, just a little bit less. So I gave it a 4.5 because it's truly magnificent. That's a little bit less, 90% to perfection, pretty great. I think it would be very easy for me to throw this track back on and listen to it, but I think I like Fear Inoculum and a couple others on this album just better than this one. This might be one of two that I don't think are like flawless in regards to loving it to death. So considering there were like 6 of these monster tracks, that's pretty good. That's all I'm trying to say. Spoilers, I guess, in advance for how I feel about this album, but it's truly divine. 4.5 on 5. 12 minutes went by. I listened to it so many times in a row, and honestly, it's just really good. I don't have a lot more to say about it. I think I've expressed my point, and then we're gonna get to the first little short thing we'll discuss today. This is just on the digital version, so if you haven't heard it yet, check it out on Spotify. C'est Litanie, contre la Peur. Alright, I'm going to read some crap from Genius because this is instrumental. So, Litanie, thank you, Cowboy Bebop. If you watch this review, I see your stuff on Genius. You're pretty great at this. Litanie contre la peur in French means litany against fear. Litany is Christian worship and is a form of prayer used in services. So, basically, it's the prayer against worship. In a sense, it's your fear inoculum. Also, apparently, this is a reference to Frank Herbert's Dune, which is a fantastic book if you haven't read it, though some of the offshoots written by his son are really great also. Anyway, a bunch of the hypes there would go, I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it is gone past, I will turn to the inner eye to see its path. And when the fear is gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. And so basically that is the little praise they would say against fear and whatnot. So there it is, kind of playing with effects a bit on this one, but I think it makes a lot of sense, right? So you have your like expelling of the fear in the first track. In Pneuma, you have like this awakening, this understanding we're all together. In a sense, it's like you're picking sides here. You're understanding that you've crafted what the enemy is, and then you've figured out who your allies are in this. And then you realize that, I guess, there's some kind of war, there's something going on. I picture it like you're preparing for a little bit of a battle, because the overall sounds is calm, there's no percussion or anything. It's just some ambient sounds that you hear for a bit, you know? So how does this go? You got super weird twangy guitar parts for the first minute or so, and then more ambient noises kick in. And then for the last 14 seconds, it's just silence. And I think it's so interesting that Tool decided that you needed to have this silence on the project to give you that little break, because it's almost like it's just like the acts are changing, or the tone or whatever is going on. So my imagination ran with it. I pictured you almost have like a sci-fi story playing out. You realize who the cancer is. You realize you join the rebels or whatever. And then now you're preparing for what's to come later on. And you're bracing yourself. You're almost injecting the inoculum that you found the inoculum, and you're creating your inoculant so you can deal with getting rid of the fear in your world. And overall, I thought that was pretty cool. I thought it was definitely like fine in the sense of something to listen to, I guess, on this. Like, I feel very mixed about this piece because it's 2 minutes with the silence, and the art project admirer in me goes, it works. It serves its role to create the ambient part of the album. It's almost like a palate cleanser, but like as an individual track, it's just a dude playing with some effects and having a good time. And while it's cool and it's well composed and it sounds good, I don't really have much love for it. So I gave it a 4. And this is why at the end of the album, I'm going to give my grade for the physical, and I'm going to give my grade for the digital, because I don't know if it's fair to give a low grade, relatively speaking, on this track and have it hurt the global grade. So we get 2 grades on this one. I don't have a lot more to say, but I do think that the silence and everything just serves great to prepare you to move into the next track, Invincible. So the first like minute and 10 seconds or so of this song kind of builds up this little introduction piece. So it's like you can feel like a guitar just kind of strumming along, playing this riff, doing its thing, and it's nice. Like, it's got a different tone. It's kind of calm, and it's kind of ready to go. That would be like the emotion I feel like got calm and ready to go as it's picking up. You kind of hear some bass, I think, in the background. Might be wrong about that. And then as it flows on, somewhere around 55 seconds, this like drum thing comes in where it's like, and it's almost weird, like 3 timing, where it just keeps repeating, and it just feels like this weird offbeat metronome that just kind of fills in the guitar bit in a way that transitions us into the very first verse of this song. Then as the first verse plays in, he kind of keeps the same music-y feel as he goes, long in tooth and soul, longing for another win, lurch into the fray, weapon out and belly in. And you just kind of get the picture of like this aged guy ready to go into battle just one more time, going back in for the glory, just one more round. Like, this is the boxer who comes back in his 50s to fight the youth. This is the band on the comeback tour. This is all the people that have already accomplished a lot, ready to go. They understand it and they need that victory one more time. Another good example is a band who has waited 13 years to release an album. Maybe this one might a little bit be about Maynard and Tool in general and their personal experiences being in a band like this, with the expectations that come with being musical legends and whatnot. So I thought that was a really strong and interesting start to it. And then you get this like little pre-chorus, chorusy thing over the next little bit, which I thought was nice, where it's like a warrior struggling to remain consequential. And I was like, wow, that is the most honest, like, old man trying to admit that being relevant is hard line I think I ever heard, right? Because when you do look at a lot of people's music careers, and especially in the arts and whatnot, you have guys who are super relevant when they're young, and by the time, in your 20s, it's so easy to stay in the loop of stuff. In your 30s, as where I'm at, you can still do it, but it gets harder. By the time you're in your 40s and you got families and kids and blah blah blahs going around, or imagine you're in 3 bands, you kind of get to a point where maybe being relevant after already setting so many, or what's another good parallel is Eminem breaking records. Like, Eminem breaking a record is boring. I don't mean it to sound disrespectful, but like, he broke like 6 records in the last year. It's just, you expect Eminem to break records. It's not consequential anymore. It's just a thing that you expect to happen. So when you've already upped the ante so much, how do you up it anymore? And then I love the chorus flowing in the bellow aloud, bold and proud of where I've been, but here I am. And it's almost like, instead of worrying about being inconsequential, you just kind of like recognize who you are, and you stand proud and you stand tall, and you just hold it up like, yo, I am that warrior. I already did the thing. And yeah, it flows into the next part, which is another little music-y thing before the next verse. It's just the way that like everything's kind of like timed and paced, that kind of feel to everything in the tone, I think is just super interesting. And the way they're able to kind of take the core of the track and just change the elements that we see popping on through, it just makes it invigorating and exciting to me. Then you get the second verse, which is beating chest and drums, beating tired bones again, age-old battle, mind, weapon out, and belly in. And I think Maynard is honestly, in a sense, just talking to the fans honestly about how he feels. A tired old warrior in it. Maybe this is like the one last battle cry. Like, this is it, guys. I'm throwing it out because this is where I'm at. I've already been fighting my whole life, and this is just another war for me, and I understand it, and I'm ready to go. Let's just pause for a second, right? Because this also fits into the bigger narrative of the album. So we understand that there's an enemy based on my perception, and that he's kind of found within the understanding of peace and mindfulness and being like everything about unity. But then what happens when you've got this enemy, this fear, this inoculant, these people in charge? Well, then you, as a person with a platform, can probably go out there and fight the battle. And I believe Tool has used their platform to share knowledge through their music, and in a sense have been actively fighting to expel poison for some time. So I think it's really interesting, because what do you do after you identify the problem and a course forward? You I don't want to say man up, but you almost arm yourself and get ready to go into battle one more time, because you identify what the battle is, and now it's time to fight. And now we're at this Invincible track. So I thought that was really, really cool. And then it kind of flows into the chorus. It flows into this evolved guitar singy bit. It's almost like the guitars get more upbeat and cool and take almost dominance in the musical end of it, as he sings out tales told of battles won, of things we've done. Caligula, who's a Roman emperor who did a lot of winning, would grin. And so it's almost like we've done so well that ancient emperors of yesteryears who have also done so well would be proud of what we've accomplished. They would look and be like, wow, these guys are kind of keeping it going forward. And then we are going to go into some more music. So in like 30 seconds, you get like this kind of explosion of 2 or 3 kind of transitionary riff things that are of intensity and whatnot, to move us towards the third verse, which is what's going to happen next, when he goes, beaten tired bones, tripping through, remember when, once invincible, now the armor's wearing thin, heavy shield down. And that's interesting, right? Because this is the truth about age. As you fight on and whatnot, especially with things like being relevant and whatnot, tripping through, remember when. That's when you're stuck in the past and everything was better, and you allow your past accomplishments to cripple your ability to fight forward, because the truth is you'll never recapture your youth and the magic of it. And that's something I'm starting to learn in my 30s, which I know isn't that old to you cats that are older than me, but it's pretty old to the 21-year-olds. But as time goes on, your armor does wear thin, and it's almost like your heavy shields go down. Your armor and your protection and everything, you were ready to go and take on the world, and I guess it gets heavier. especially when you're beating tired bones. And I just think it's an amazing admission of what it must feel like to be the tenured warrior of the band Tool that Maynard and his homies are. So I thought it was just powerful, and I feel like hearing the words and hearing the tone and the way he sings it is really, really cool as we move into a heavier version of the hook. So yeah, it's like warriors struggling to remain relevant, warriors struggling to remain consequential, and again, like really just trying in that in an effort to, I guess, keep reinventing the wheel and doing what you're supposed to be doing as an artist. It's challenging, and then it flows into this heavier part as it picks in, and then he sings like over the heavy part. He kind of sings over the warrior struggling, or cry aloud, bold and proud of where I've been, but here I am, where I end, within the warrior bit, and that's over the heavier part, unless I'm mistaken a bit. Again, it's a long song, so if I'm a little bit off on the details, I'm super sorry. But I like the fact that after kind of looking at the defeated point of view, you're kind of left, I've done so much and I'm proud of who I am. And so I can be where I am at. And I'm like, so here I am where I end. And I feel like in a sense, this is pointing out that I'm coming to the end of my legacy and I know it, but still I can take pride in it all. And I just think it's like this beautiful thing that he's got going on here on this track. And we are about to move into some music. So I'm gonna listen and let you bring you up to speed. So the music gets like super intense and like picks up as he's like warrior struggling to remain relevant again as he comes over it, and it's just the intensity and the drums pick up and everything just feels like we're getting into it. And it's almost like, in a sense, as the next instrumental part plays through, again we get this picture, or I get this picture of almost a battle playing out inside of the song, and I thought that was really interesting for me. And then we're at about 7 minutes in based on my notes, and basically the music's gonna flip up and it's gonna be like a bit of a solo-y guitar with a bunch of like wah 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 kind of sounds to it, and then it's gonna be like a whole bunch where the drums are gonna fade and the main loop of the song kind of like kicks back in and it just flows in, the rhythms get do kind of feel, and it's really fucking fun. All the way till we get to what Genius calls a refrain and what I call the robot verse, because he gets robot voice with it as he goes, tears in my eyes, chasing Ponce de Leon's phantoms, and that's a reference to the fountain of youth. So he's chasing youth, because as old people, we chase youth, and that's just kind of how it seems to go. Filled with hope, I can taste mythical fountains, false hope perhaps, but the truth never got in my way. Perhaps before now, feel the sting, feel time bearing down. And it's almost like as you chase your fountains into youth, I guess something changes, because he's kind of like, but the truth never got in my way before now. So when you're youthful and relevant and you're kind of aware of the truth, perhaps as you get older, being in touch with the truth amidst everything else gets even harder, which is something that leads to the fear coming in the first place, which I thought was super cool as he feels the sting, feeling time bearing down. And that's just something I think a lot of people can relate to. And I love the way it sounds. I love the way he sings it. It's got like this higher pitched robot voice, like I said. And it's really just beautiful. Like, we're like, I don't know, what is it? 8 minutes, 27 seconds to 9 minutes, 7 seconds in. And it's like such a fitting and like just really nice thing to hear. And then more music's about to come. So I really like this groove that follows this for a good minute and a bit, where it's heavy. It's like and I feel like my head was just bopping like this the whole time. I was really, really into it. Like, it really picks up about 9:36, and it just flows. Like, it just flows while it slowly changes the leads and whatnot, all the way till about 10 minutes and 45 seconds. So that's like well over a minute of this just gorgeous groove of heavy intensity. Like, I just want to be at the live show while this part's playing out and let them play it for a whole extra minute. You know what I'm saying? Do some funky stuff. Anyway, so then the tone completely like flips up again, and we get that refrain, but in normal Maynard voice and not robot voice, and more intense. But he also delivers it less smooth, like tears in my eyes. Like, it's more intense. It's more like fitting to the intensity of the music as it picks in. And then we get that for a little bit. So we get that, then it gets real intense and it picks up, and he sings over that next little part, false hope perhaps, but the truth never got in my way. And then he kind of repeats his little refrain bit, and then it's like real intense for a little bit, but you know it's the outro at this point, because if you're like me, you're staring at it going 12 minutes 20 seconds, and then it's a little outro bit, and then it's kind of one of the harder stops on this album. Everything else kind of like flows in, but I feel like this one, it's just like really intense, really intense, really intense, and it just cuts. And why does it do that? Because I actually think Litanie, Contre, Peur, and Legion, Inoculant, which is the next track, which we will get to shortly, are kind of all part of the same greater experience of Invincible. So it left the longer intro, the part that would come before the band kicks in, as my notes had for the other tracks. It kind of moved that into the two skits, or the two other tracks, which really just made this Invincible a much bigger experience from the ambient perspective of it. So again, the short version is this track is a little bit exploring Maynard's deals with being an old man that's not as relevant as he used to be. While in the album, I think it's kind of showing that through age, our ability to connect to truth and in our efforts to reconnect with youth, you might be blinded, and this could be a source where you feel invincible, but the cracks in your armor allow that fear to come in, and it's important to go through this self-awareness process, because it sounds like painful for him as he goes through this understanding of where he's at and describes what it's like to be so accomplished, to be the old warrior. And I really like this track. This one is amazing to me. This one is a 5 on 5. It is truly beautiful. Why don't we now move on to Legion, Inoculant. So, like, this one kind of feels a bit like Litanie, Contre, Peur, because it has that ambient tone, but instead it feels like it's more advanced. There's a little bit more happening in this track. It starts off a little bit with some weird intro, and then around 50 seconds through, there's kind of like staticky stuff. Then there's some vocal sample that's like you can't really hear what's being said. It's like they just took his voice and like kind of mixed it throughout and added like a pulsy sound into it to it created. So if you look at Invincible like a soldier gearing up for war in a sense, Litanie, Contre, Peur is kind of the peacefulness as you go into the part, and Invincible is the battle within your mind. It's the part where you have to come to terms with things within yourself in order to understand what's going on. On the other hand, we move on to Legion, Inoculant. So why don't we just double check exactly what inoculant means, because we know that inoculum is a substance used for an inoculation. An inoculation is something that's used to protect you from a disease or whatever. So inoculant is it's just a substance. It's basically I don't really know the difference. A substance suitable for inoculating versus a substance used. So inoculant is a substance that's used. So inoculant is something that it could be an inoculum. Understood. So Legion, Inoculant. If there's going to be a battle, I guess, I don't know, like you're going up against something, you have to confront the Legion. So apparently this is to deal with people. There's some genius guy, Echo himself, who put a whole bunch of stuff about how it's kind of like dealing with crowds in the public. In the middle of the Legion Inoculant track, he just says bless this immunity, and then it kind of flows out with some more ambient kind of sounds, in my opinion. Then there's some crazy static and silence for a couple of seconds instead of a long series of seconds. And I suppose I'm going to expand this theory as I talk about the next track when we get there, but if you look at it, the warrior's prepared for battle now. You plan things out. And if you think about what you're going up against here, It's almost like the world, social media, the common narratives, the norms that dictate and govern our lives. So it is this weird mix. And you just picture, like, I just picture him at the end of this track as he's surveying the enemy and realizing the amount of vast ignorance that has overtaken almost everything out there. And I was just, again, I'm kind of blown away at this point with everything I've heard. And yeah, I don't have a lot more to comment on this little skit. I gave it a 4.25. It's not really a skit. It's I guess a track, an ambient track. I mean, it's 3 minutes 10 seconds, which on this album feels short, but is actually the length of a song for most people. So it's 4.25. You just feel like there's a tension for an upcoming war, and that's all I got to say about that. Before moving on to talking about Descending, I do want to split this review into two parts. I really don't know how long it's going to be after editing, but I think it would be a little bit smarter to like get this rendered and get it up and then get on to recording part 2 after that's done, so that it's just better. I don't know. Maybe you disagree. If you guys wanted to see this all in one part, I'll know for the next time that you would rather one long ass part instead of 2 parts. But in general, the 2 part seems to be cooler. I really like this album so far, as you can tell. There's still 3 more giant songs to talk about, 2 more smaller songs to talk about, and I look forward to getting to all of it with you. So yeah, I don't have a lot more to say for now, considering we're going to end it. If you do like what you're seeing so far, feel free to leave a comment and we can have a little conversation. By the time this is out, I'll likely have already finished recording part 2, so if I say something dumb and I don't correct it, I will make sure to like check it out in the comments, and if it's super helpful, we'll even pin that comment at the top. Nah, for real, you guys are awesome, and I can't even wait to see what you guys thought about this album, especially the people who've waited 13 years for it. Like, I can't wait to see what you think, because for me, I'm blowing away as a new fan, but y'all as OG fans, that's where it really counts. Like the video if you did. Feel free to subscribe to the channel for part 2 and other videos, and special thanks to the patrons Ismail Gadamsi, Chris Prado, Jonathan Barnes, DJ Black Hurricane, Linda Williams, and Coney Sparks. They support what we do, helped us get a new camera. They tell us what albums they want to see us review, so if there's something you want to see us covered, Patreon's a great way to jump the line, we'll say. But if you're into this long form of content, it does take a while, so if you want to show some support in a Patreon kind of way, that would be hella fresh of you. YouTube is not kind to us, we'll say. Anyway, that's all I gotta say for now. I'm gonna go edit this, get it out there, and get ready to do part 2. So thank you so much for watching, and like I said, I can't wait to see what you have to think, see what y'all think. Peace.